So, welcome back to our Python class, and we are working on our NIM game. We have learned how to make our game run. We have our players, we have computer players, human players. We can now read the configuration. We learn how to read the configuration using the config parser library. And now the question comes, how do we save game data? Again, we could use, of course, save them in a config. We could save them in a JSON file, we could save them just a regular plain text file, CSV file, but let's be serious about it. Let's use a database, right? Let's use a database to save data about players. Maybe, somebody wants to analyze the games later on, right? For now, we want to only save the game winning, the game players' names on the game, and maybe timestamp would be okay, right? So this question, the first question is where to save it. So this would be a place. This is where we could save the winner to database. Thank you. And of course, loser two, right? I'll keep track of that. Right. Of course, loser could be calculated from the winner, of course, right? But we want to save it, right? But we could also save the new history. That's something to do, right? And also, right. We would probably want to save, So now question comes, what do we want to save for now? So for now, let's do our database design. Again, I'll try to do this in using our code. I could use dbeaver. So I'll make a new file actually, right? I should mention that of course these human player and all the computer players, they could also be living in a separate files. We could just import them, right? Because in the same directory. So let's start organizing our code a little bit. So I will make database completely separate in a separate file. So I'll start a new file. I'll call it maybe db by maybe just for that, right? Let's call that maybe just very simple name, right? So of course I will call it. This is we will store our data in database, right? We'll use sqlite, right? So import and we will need to come up with migration strategy, meaning that means we need to create table or alter table or drop table. Well, maybe possibly, right? So so import SQLite and our class create connection database, but of course we need class, right? So right, but of course we want class based, right? So this is going to be a database. So class, I'll use db, right? So constructor, of course, will be constructor, right? Will be, yeah. Thank you. Connect db name, cursor, right? And we have table. Now, what is the self create table, right? We don't have a function table. We need, of course, create table. Structure, of course, will be for delete connection closing, closing our database. We already know how to do this, right? We already covered this, closing the connection, right? And it's not required, not required for if for shorter programs, right? But no, good idea, but good practice, but not required, right? All right, so now we need, of course, to do, right? We need to create table, right? Constructor, again, notice this will create a file that does not exist, right? So we'll call it, of course, NIMDB, right? By default, right? And now we are pretty good already, right? We can run it. Let's test it, and we will save it our database connection. So where would we save it? Our game class. We probably need it in here, right? Let's add it here. We need to save it somewhere, right? And probably we could save a connection, right? Or database object, right? So db object, right? We'll create a db, right? And we might probably want to do it here, right? We need self player A, self B. So getting kind of a lot of functions. So db, right? Will be something we will use. So self db, db equals db. All right. So, all right. So this will create. This will hold the database object. All right. So this will be part of the configuration, of course. Right. We could pass db here. Right. Or we could create connection here, or maybe pass. That's another thing. Right. That may be even better. Right. Maybe we don't need to. That's a good question. Where do we, or db pass, right? db pass, maybe that would be better, right? And then maybe we could do this, to be even better, right? So import db, right? Or maybe from db import db, perhaps, right? Maybe I'll rename it from database. I'll call database. Maybe I'll rename it from db import db, but that's so from db import db, from db import db, right? Why? So notice, because we have a file named db pi and we have a class named db, right? That's why we have using this syntax. Remember our importing, right? So of course, you could use names could be does not have to match, do not have to match, right? Okay, but we'll use, so that's why of course I can use db, right? That's like daytime, right? So from db import db, right? And again, not required, but now I think this will be better. So db pass, we could do maybe say one more option. Again, same defaults would be good, right? No. And we'll add here, so that will be better, right? So db pass, right? That might be better, right? And we have a database connection inside, right? We could even make this internal. Again, if maybe nobody outside doesn't really need this, right? So database connection, right? Create again, we don't have to also pass the players, but again, db pass, right? It will have a reference to our database object, right? Only question now is migration setup, right? So database object is, we have access. The question is now, how are we going to store the data, right? Because of course we have our database here, right? And let's add a print, right? Or print created database at yeah. All right. Let's see this in action. So let's see this idea. All right. Let's run this game. Right. So let's check. Oh, I should have got rid of this configuration. So let's save all this. I don't know, Alice, right? And Bob, right? So, right. Has no attribute create table, right? Because this has to do. This is to do, right? To do. Right. We have no to do, right? Yeah. All right. That's not done yet, right? So let's do it again, one more time, and now we should be good. Yeah. So Valdis, Liga, and it works, right? We can start playing 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 2, and 1, and Liga. Valdis wins. How fair. All right. So great. So we have a database. If we scroll up, right? Connect to database NIM. So database actually is created automatically. It's empty completely. If you check in our file explorer, you'll see it's completely empty, right? 0 kilobytes, right? So our next step will be to alter the tables and have the create tables, and then also create methods for writing to these tables. All right, thank you, and we will continue.